Good evening, Coyote fans. Happy Star Wars Day to everyone. Welcome to the Season 1 finale of the Howling podcast. My name is Jordan Decker. Tonight, once again, joined by Mark Wendt and Chad Berger. I hope wherever you are listening and watching tonight that today for you is as nice as it was in Southeast South Dakota. I can't wait for the summer to be here. Really quick, if you're watching live on X, Facebook, or YouTube, there is the slide to follow us on social media. If you're listening on podcast, you can catch us on X at HowWithUs3, myself at JD6Ope5, Mark at WDiamond605, and Chad at Chad Berger, BIRGER at Chad Berger. On Facebook, just search The Howling Podcast. Give us a like and or a follow. And then on, as Chad says, on the YouTube at The Howling Podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Quick disclaimer before we begin, as always, the opinions on this show are strictly ours and not of those of USD or the athletic department. Tonight's show, once again, brought to you by the tremendous sponsors and people over at the Wakanda Peach Company out of Burbank, South Dakota. Wakanda Peach Company, where all your peach dreams come true. Tonight, we spend time with the leader of the pack, USD AD Jon Schemmel. We will also, as always, recap the week that was, look forward to the upcoming week, less and less sporting events as we wind down the academic year. With that, I welcome back Mark and Chad. Great to see you guys tonight. It was great to see you guys for a couple innings on Friday as well.
You were there? Oh,
I was there.
I think I saw you for a couple minutes there. Yeah, that was fun.
As I told you guys, they did not technically win the second game until I showed up. So
okay.
True.
Well, yeah, we had a good time. Lots of good stuff happened here over the past week, and it's finals week coming up, so there's not a whole lot going on this next week at the University of South Dakota. But we're gonna wrap up our season here on the show and get ready for the summer. If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, and you want to have your comments featured in the show, go ahead and comment. Hit the live chat on YouTube, comment or reply on Twitter, and slide into the comments there on Facebook, and we can see those, and we might even feature some of those on the show. So go ahead and be interactive with the program tonight. We'll talk real quickly about the past week results. Men's golf finished third at the Mecca of Mesa, Arizona in the Summit League tournament. The track and field hosted a meet in Vermilion. Lots of stuff happened, and we're going to go through a lot of that here later on in the show. And softball destroyed Kansas City 3-0 on Friday and Saturday. So great job there. We're going to dive a lot more into some of those individual results later on. But before we get there, we do have a special guest, as Jordan mentioned earlier, that's going to be joining us for tonight's show. Here's a picture of us at the Summit League tournament earlier this year. We're going to be joined by Jon Schemmel.
I can't believe I missed the handshake, John. Yeah. I was so worried about taking the selfie, and I missed the handshake. I'm so sorry.
The lighting really came right into my face on that. That photographer was coming right at me, obviously. Thank God I had the shades on.
Right.
The VIPs wear shades indoors.
Right. That's for sure. Yeah, I actually just see double all the time, so that's why I wear glasses. I have prescription all the time, so that's why I wear glasses all the time.
All right, John. So I don't know how much of our previous episodes you've watched, but a couple episodes ago we did have football coach Travis Johansson on, and here is what he had to say.
Jon Schemmel was talking some trash earlier about my game. So, he's pretty darn good. But I'd like to saddle up. There's nobody I don't want to play against. But I want to play against the good guys, the really good guys, and just see if I can catch them off day. And if I beat them, I'll never play them again. I'll just sit back and take my win and leave.
When's this Coyote golf outing? Isn't it during the summer?
Yeah, there'll be an all-staff outing at some point. I haven't been able to think that far ahead right now.
But get USD Athletic Marketing to be around with video. I want raw footage of you guys giving each other crap.
I think you guys should walk the course. I think you should be with us. Get a cart.
We do a live episode.
I'll caddy.
during
Yep,
the
we're
event.
in.
Live episode. There you go. Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah.
So do you want to cut a wrestling promo here, like a WWE wrestling promo, to challenge Jon Schemmel to a golf match right now? Or
I'm not going to challenge him. He'll come find me. He'll come find me. He knows where I'm at.
All right. So the stage has been set here. Couple things to just piggyback off of on this one. Number one, are the Howling podcast hosts going to be invited to potentially caddy or do something, with the golf outing here this summer? And number two, do you want to challenge Travis Johansson using some type of a promo here?
I think both the answers to that are a resounding yes. We'd love to have you guys out there. And once we get out there, I know Travis would probably start begging for strokes. So, but if we're going to go in a match, he's got to go straight up. But yeah, I don't think he's going to get a whole lot of work on his golf game this summer. So, so I feel pretty good about my chances. Not that I get out very much either, but probably a little bit more than he does. That's for sure. But yeah,
you said your handicap was low single digits.
Yeah. I mean, it's been as low as a 1, and it usually is a 4 or 5. So, yeah, it became the thing. It was funny. When my baseball career ended, golf was the only thing I did not competitively growing up. And so I never took lessons or anything like that. I just played. And, like a lot of baseball and hockey players, good hand-eye coordination, so you can hit the ball and get around. But I'd shoot 82 to 92 and never thought anything of it. And then after my baseball career ended, my grandpa up in Madison, South Dakota, bought me a dozen lessons in Sioux Falls. And sure enough, ended up getting my lessons from Brett Bennett, now our women's golf coach. And it was like the year after he graduated from USD. We had no idea who each other were until we met. And his lessons, no joke, I took 12 lessons that summer. By the end of that summer, I was breaking 80 every day. And then the next summer the summer I got down to a 1. And so Brett Bennett, sure, he shaved about 12 strokes off my game.
That's fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So small world in South Dakota all the time.
Right. I have an easy one for you to start off, or at least I think it is. There's a Capital One commercial, not our sponsor yet, but we would appreciate it if they would. Yeah. Where the tagline is "Easiest decision in the history of decisions." You recently announced extending Leanne Williamson. Was that the easiest decision ever?
Yeah, I would do that every hour if I could, just to make sure we're never losing time on Leanne. Yeah, it was, interestingly enough, an opportunity presented just because we were actually shifting, the state of South Dakota is shifting some sport contracts around. So fall sports are going to calendar year contracts as opposed to fiscal year contracts, which makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. So, so that part of it made it a little bit easier. And then obviously with Leanne, I'm going to never let her get anywhere near 5 years in her contract. And, I think that's offense is our only defense, right? When it comes to contracts, we're certainly not in the camp that has the money to pay $1 million contracts or more. And so staying out in front of it and getting ahead of them is always going to be a priority for the ones that are doing everything right. And Leanne does everything right. And I said it in my quote, the wins are incredible, and she's built a dynastic program in the Summit League. Yet what her kids do in the classroom and the community is really unmatched. And everyone talks about it. And so, Leanne's kind of a legend here, and I feel incredibly fortunate she's part of our team.
Yeah, and she's at every single sporting event.
Yeah,
every single one of them.
She loves it, right? And I think so many of our coaches do, and that's one of the cool things about a place like USD to me is it's big, it's Division I, it's a flagship institution, yet everything about it is small enough to show up and support each other. And we had a bunch of coaches at softball games, and track meet, tennis matches, everything. And that's really fun to see.
I heard the Denver tennis match was wild. I'd be curious which coaches, really got into it.
Yeah, I don't know if it was any coaches that day in particular, but our student athletes did a hell of a job razzing the Denver players. So
it was fun, Jordan. I was there.
Hey, we'll just moving right along. Hey, so John, speaking of banners, and the volleyball team, but speaking of banners, really quick before we get into the heavy hitting stuff, will we ever see banners hung in the SCSC, or is that not feasible in that arena?
Yeah, it's not feasible in the arena. So, a little bit of, you never build a perfect facility. One of the flaws with the arena is, so part of it is, we wanted to keep the ceiling really low for crowd noise and other things like that. But then in doing that, then it created some different challenges with airflow and all these other things. And what they ended up doing with airflow, I don't think they ever intentionally did this and realized it. I think it was an afterthought when the conversation came up about hanging banners. Then they realized we could never do that. And so it's the way they set up the airflow, the air ducts, whatever it is. It's just not going to work to hang championship banners in the arena, unfortunately. But we have, part of our master plan and, the indoor, the dome, softball have all been talked about pretty openly. But part of that too is building out, graphics and other packages for the arena. We're even working on just having a whole different seating plan within the arena, maybe to reduce capacity a little bit, add some hospitality areas for students and otherwise. So we're working on all those plans to showcase our history better and do other things with fan experience. But banners will never be an option. We do have a much better flag that we'll be able to showcase next year that we're excited about, thanks to President Gestring.
Love it.
Yep. And that's in the arena now. That's up. So we won't have that dinky little thing that everyone cringes at every time you look at it.
John, what are your top 3 priorities over the next few years as part of your vision for the athletic department at the University of South Dakota?
Well, I'll start with people and culture. I think, and I don't want to oversimplify that. I think it's easy to say something like that and not really deliver behind it. But you win and lose with people every day. USD, we're probably never going to have the most resources of anyone in our conference or anything like that. We certainly want to be competitive in that, and we're taking steps to doing that. But to be successful and competitive, you have to have great people that love USD, that love being great teammates, that love teaching and working with kids. But I think that goes, the people part goes all the way through, from the administration, coaches, through the student athletes and everything like that. So, I think we have great coaches, great people in the department. We've brought some new people in over the last year, and I love the energy and the enthusiasm behind it. So it always starts there for me. Number 2 is just fiscal responsibility, sustainability, however you want to look at that. I would love to sit here and tell you it's not about money all the time, but it's pretty much all about money all the time. And it's good, bad, and different. It's the reality of Division I athletics now, and it's not just about paying kids, but a lot more to that for USD. I mean, when I took the job, I took it knowing we had some financial challenges we had to overcome, and we're doing things to overcome those, primarily growing revenues. But we have made some cuts and some changes that we've had to do, and part of that's the NCAA settlement and realignment, and part of that is just being us being a better partner to campus in general, a little less reliant on the institution. So fiscal responsibility and sustainability is a huge piece of that. And then the third thing would be to get our facilities done kind of once and for all. And what I mean by we're never done with facilities, but truly where we have everything that we need. And now it's just maintaining these facilities. And so we're pretty far down the path on our capital planning. We'll have to get a formal softball plan together. That'll probably take another 6 to 12 months or so. But we're pretty close to fine-tuning plans for the indoor track and finishing the Dakota Dome once and for all. And it'll be another $100 million capital push probably when all is said and done. And but then once we get to the end of that, we'll be in a position where we truly have everything we need. Every sport's going to feel like they have a Division I facility to recruit to bring kids into, all of that. And so, those would be the big three things. Obviously, in the fiscal sustainability part, you've got to throw NIL and rev share and all these other things that are out there to be part of it. And I think a lot of Yote fans out there probably don't realize how far into that we are. Every time I tell people we're rev sharing one way or another, probably upwards of $500,000 already with our student athletes. People are a little bit surprised when they hear that. So but that's a big part of our future for sure.
John, to keep going on the money thing, you guys announced earlier this year, or maybe it was late last year, that the Yote Fund, which kind of restructured how people were giving. I'm just curious how that's going. Is it where you expected to be at this point, or?
Yeah, I think so. I think the Yote Fund really is meant to be a simplified process, and it's a complete overhaul and change. Change is hard and confusing and chaotic, and so what we think and hope is a year or two from now, people are going to realize what a more inclusive and engaging model this is. But it's also much simpler. It's easier for someone to say, well, what's my giving total? Well, you can do the math on your own if everything counts, right? So, okay, I spent $1,000 on tickets. I donate $5,000 and I went to $4,000 worth of events. So that puts me at 10, right? Well, that's easy math. And here we go. And so I hope that's the end result. I was really nervous about the hit the Howling Pack might take, and kind of decentralizing the Howling Pack a little bit, empowering coaches to go fundraise, use their excellence funds, and really just let donors choose where they want to give their money. If it's based off a relationship or a sport they care deeply about, they should be able to give to those. And I've always believed donors will give more if they can give to something they're directly passionate about, as opposed to something we are dictating has to go here because we're trying to stockpile as much money in one fund that we can. And so it hasn't been without its challenges. But I think overall, it's been pretty good. We had a bunch of people that had blocked their entire mornings off the next day to basically take inbound phone calls for 3-4 hours. And I think we got like 3. And there were a handful of emails. We heard the smattering of questions kind of running through our fan base and all of that. So we tried to get in front of those, hence the video and some of the other things that we did. But I think it's really good. And I hope that doing this, along with getting into a more formal priority seating program that's much more in touch with Division I college athletics today, I hope those things will really start to stack up and make a difference for us. Because even with the priority seating, with our increase, our football seats are still like the donation to sit front row 50-yard line is still like less than a third of SDSU. And so it's, we are very thoughtful about not pricing people out, but we've got to get more into, a more modern market, what our peers are doing. And certainly to make sure we're better positioned to compete year in and year out with the schools our fans want us to compete with. And we know damn well who those are.
And I can attest to this, John, because when the Yote Fund, when you guys sent out the big packet for the mailing and everything, they're through the mail, we had considered going up a level, right? Mm-hmm. And we had some questions, and Ben and team answered, and it was just like, oh, yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Change is hard. And yeah, I think it's going to be a really good positive change because, as you said, this is the new landscape now.
Yeah.
In giving. And so my question is, where did this idea of the model come from? Did you and Ben collaborate? Have you seen this with other schools and institutions in the region?
It's a model I've kind of always believed in. I've always paid a lot of attention to the Ahern Fund at Kansas State. One, because my dad went there. I lived there. He started working in college athletics there. And so I was there for 3 or 4 years. But it's just something I've always, I guess, believed in. And then when I was here the first time and we were campaigning for the Capitol project, I just saw holes in what we were doing as I was out being the one, raising the money. Here we are asking for millions of dollars from one donor. And yet then all of a sudden we had to make a phone call to someone who's writing a check for $100,000 a year, or $1 million a year, or $25,000 a year, whatever, and say, hey, you didn't pay your $1,200 for the Howling Pack this year, so you're not eligible to buy your tickets yet. And that's a pretty bad phone call to make, as you can imagine. And so the structure just needs to be the structure just needs to be in a way that's more conducive to all the groups. And I think it brings all that money in, and whether it's pushing money to excellence funds, I want someone that wants to donate directly to tennis to be able to get points to that, to have a better seat at football, because that's a lot better than them not doing anything. Or I'd rather have them give $600 to tennis than $100 to the Howling Pack, because I'd rather take the $600 at the end of the day. So that's really kind of the simplicity of the thought. I'm a pretty simplistic thinker. I did implement the Miami Athletic Fund at Miami in Ohio when I was there, and under the same model, and they're still utilizing that. And so, yeah, it's something I believed in, and implemented at Miami and implemented here, and would never do it any other way. But yes, hiring Ben from Kansas State helped, and that was part of my thought process, because I knew he was coming from the Ahern Fund.
Mm-hmm. A great guy.
Yeah, he is. Mm-hmm. He is.
John, so a quick follow-up to that. So if a guy like me is walking down the streets of Burbank tomorrow morning and I find a $100 bill and I decide I want to give it to USD Athletics, where's the best spot for me to do that? Do I give it to NIL? Do I give it to the Oak Fund? Or do I save it to buy another season ticket? What's the best spot?
Yeah, there is no wrong answer to that. I think that's, and a little bit, part of that is what this model is pushing for. Now, I would still say, if you're truly coming to me and saying, hey, I have this $100, I want it to help me get a better seating location, what's the best thing I can do with it? I would still tell you to give it to the Howling Pack Fund. But most people have some other intuition or feeling on a sport they want to give it to, or something a little bit different, or a lot of people are comfortable with, hey, I'm going to set up a fund now, a name fund, and have it be unrestricted to basketball or something different. And so, yeah, I think it's up to each person. A lot of people are asking a lot of questions about NIL, as you can imagine. I think our big hang up has primarily been the tax deductibility, and we completely understand that. But we've also been able to find people that either don't care or are so passionate about NIL that they're willing to give to a collective and support it. So we've been able to kind of take steps in this year over year. And at times, do we all want it to happen quicker? Sure. But when I got here, we basically weren't rev sharing at all. And now between Alston and NIL, next year we'll be set up to rev share, like I said before, right in the $500,000 range. So we're taking steps, and they're significant steps each year. And if and when we opt in, and I do assume that we will at some point, then, it becomes a whole lot easier, because now the rev share bucket's just another bucket, and it's all under our umbrella. So we wouldn't have to have a separate collective at that point.
John, we have a few people online that have some questions, kind of related to merchandise and gear. So Matt wants to know, if there's better football gear available, get names on jerseys, things like dry fit hats I don't know a whole lot about the specifics here. But is there a way that, the gear that's being offered can be more accessible to the common fan?
Yeah. I mean, and you guys know that's an issue we've had for a long time here. I knew it would be something I heard about early and often. Just so everyone kind of understands how we're set up, like athletics has no control over retail at USD, right? In general, that's not under our wing. Yes, we have the relationship with Adidas, and yes, we work with Charlie's in the bookstore and that arm on campus, but we can't dictate to them what to order, right? And so we've tried to do a better job of working with them ahead of time to kind of show them the options we're going to have. But a bookstore isn't going to go out and buy, custom player jerseys, right? Because for them, they're just trying to not lose money primarily on campus. And so, in the big picture of things, Charlie's is a pretty small operation from a retail side of things. And then, and so I think we've had a lot of discussions about how we think we can do this better. That includes perhaps athletics taking it over in its entirety someday in the future. And I think there's a path to that. And I do think it's something we'll continue to get better at each year. But Shields doesn't give a damn what USD, and I have a brother-in-law he's my age. He's worked with Shields since he was 18. He's on his third store. He runs the Omaha store. So I've talked to him a lot about this, and I can assure you Shields doesn't feel like they need any help making money. They do pretty well. And Adidas is not their preferred vendor. And Adidas does not prioritize retail unless you're a mega partner like Nebraska. And so there's just all these different challenges. There's not really a silver bullet answer to it. All I can tell people is I do think it'll continue to get better year over year. I think we're trying to partner better with campus right now. I know there's a whole bunch of stuff going on that side of the operation, with marketing and retail and just what's the right way to structure and set up and do things differently. And so it's something we'll constantly look at and improve on. And then, I think as for putting like names on jerseys and stuff, I think the NIL store is really what's helped with that. Is now basically every player that signs up has that. And anyone can go buy those. So those options are out there. But I don't think we're going to get into any of the sport by sport stores. We've tried that before here. I think those things have been a nightmare. And then all of a sudden you have coaches running a retail operation too. So it just becomes a pretty big disaster pretty quick. So, but yeah, believe me, I love our marks. I love that we've brought black in, love that we have a coyote again. I love the Yotes mark. And that's been a thing I've leaned hard into, because if I hear one more national broadcast or someone say the Coyotes one more time, I'm going to, throw something against the wall. So honestly, I just said, well, if we just put Yotes everywhere, no one's going to say Yotes. So if we lean into that, maybe it just becomes more our national mark. And at the very least, hopefully that's an easy way to make sure that the big broadcasters get it right when they come in on those games. That's for sure. Because I know that makes every one of us cringe when it happens.
Yes, it does.
But I mean, I'm all into the branding and marketing and retail. I think it's going to take a little bit of time to really get it right. But then, when it comes to Shields and stuff like that, that's a whole different animal that I have absolutely no control over.
All right, John, I've got another one for you here. So recently, within the past few weeks here, there was an announcement about a settlement for the NCAA lawsuit. You mentioned opting in. I am not a lawyer. I don't know what any of this stuff means. Can you kind of describe to us in very layman's terms what is going on here with all this stuff?
Yeah, I think I come from a family of attorneys, so I'm not an attorney. I played baseball, was my my post-school education. But the settlement, the simplest way to look at the settlement is essentially they are creating a model that you can choose to opt into or not, and you can still be Division I. And you don't have to all be the same in a conference or anything. It's a school by school basis, but it's a mandate if you're a Power 4 institution. So you do not have the option if you are a Power 4 institution. From there, basically what the opt-in allows is the good of it is it sets up a structure that allows departments to share up to $20.5 million of their revenue with student athletes. And that's based off of averages from Power 4 institutions. So that's the cap. Well, that's the intended cap, right? So then you have other rules that go into it. If you are going to opt in, roster limits is the thing that gets the most attention right now. And so basically they're removing limits on scholarships, but then setting roster limits. So if the roster limit for football is 105, well, you can have 105 full rides out there if you want. And so, or, if you have up to 105 scholarships you could use, you could spend it on 80 people and stack them up and get into your rev share. And so there's a lot more, it's a lot easier to rev share and do things, just directly with student athletes and have direct agreements with the institution. You're essentially buying out their NIL, even though they can still go get things done with Pepsi directly or whatever else. But essentially that agreement, becomes a different version of the financial aid agreement that we already have. And so those are the main things that you get if you do opt in. So not opting in, which is what we and every other Dakota school have said publicly is our position right now. Basically, one advantage as we looked at here, well, if we don't opt in, we don't have roster limits. And if all these big schools are going to cut all these student athletes, there's going to be some really good talent out there that we might be able to get, for a full ride, or heck, even cheaper sometimes, because there's so many kids in the portal that, we might be able to get kids that just are trying to find a place to play. And so it was actually a strategic decision to not opt in for that. And that was the main reason. And so those are kind of the big cruxes of opting in versus not opting in. And so but there's nothing we can't do by not opting in, right? So we can still have a collective and give NIL to student athletes, and we are, and we do. We still rev share and we set it up through Alston, and it's scholarship, but it's designed to be an additive. It's basically another thing above cost of attendance. So between cost of attendance and Alston, football, basketballs, and volleyball, they could be your numbers almost up to about $10,000 if you're doing the academic requirements right. So we already have that built in, right? And then NIL would be anything above that. So, there's nothing we can't do. It becomes a lot easier if you do opt in, right? And coaches can be a lot more creative with how they recruit, how they spend scholarship money, all those different things. And so there's just, and it's a better thing for our donors too, because then they can get tax deductibility. Again, now you're just more giving like you would any other way. So, but I also feel like there's so many unanswered questions because honestly, Chad, Jordan, Mark, like you guys know as much as I do when it comes to the facts, because we're all reading it in the papers and the articles together. And it's sad that we're being put into a predicament where it's May and people are making decisions, not even knowing what the consequences, good or bad, of those decisions are for August. Right. And that's that's just crap. And so I don't think anybody feels good about certain aspects of it. But something has to happen. And I think this is, if this doesn't go through, I don't know what kind of chaos ensues beyond it. I mean, the money that's going out in NIL right now is ridiculous, and I'm all for the kids making money, but if we have kids making 5x in college more than they would make in the NFL, I mean, this is ridiculous, and I just don't agree with that. So, yeah.
So we did have one question before we move on. So NIL is in-house even when opting out.
No, NIL would only come in if we opted in, right? So because we're not opting in, that's one of the, again, good, bad, or indifferent. That's one of the consequences of not opting in is we still have to keep the collective at an arm's length. And so we'll still have the pride of the Western Plain, all of that. Now, you're also seeing a lot of the big schools, right? Texas just came out and said they had a $35 to $40 million payroll for football next year. Who knows if Texas didn't say that, right? Whoever said that. Somebody put it out there, though, and it got a lot of attention. Well, I mean, how is that possible? Well, it's possible because no one is putting the collectives in check still. And that's then, so not to reconfuse everybody, but that's where Deloitte comes in. Deloitte's been part of the solution. They're supposed to be putting together a database and a system that's going to help regulate fair market value on these deals. But for us, right, we wouldn't need a collective because we're not going to rev share beyond $20.5 million, right? Or at least not anytime soon, right? Never say never. But we're a long ways away from, I mean, our budget's not much more than that in total. So we got some work to do to push that out.
So John, my question then, it's kind of a two-parter, I guess, on these conversations with the student athletes, right? So about the changing landscape, like, is that admin down to coaches, down to the student athletes? And then my second half, when it comes to, you see it mostly in football and to a lesser extent basketball, but what's the deal with the conversations with agents? Like, are you guys, for these student athletes that get agents that are kind of like exploring, like, do you guys have any contact with these agents? Is it kind of like a battle for the student athlete? Like, what are those conversations like?
Yeah, I'll start with the agent thing first. I'll just say it. There are more just, I want to swear so much on the, there are so many really bad agents right now, and it's embarrassing, and it's disgraceful to these kids. I've had agents cuss me or other administrators out saying, we're ruining these kids' lives and taking advantage of them and not taking care of them. And I had one conversation where, they were calling us greedy. And this agent's probably clipping 10 to 20% of whatever deal he cuts for a kid. And so I snapped back at him and asked him how many swimmers he had on his payroll or on his clientele. Because there's a lot of swimmers out there in the portal too, but I don't see any agents representing them. So if you're telling me as an agent you're only in it to help the kids, I'm calling BS on that a little bit, because why don't you have any swimmers or tennis players or soccer players then? And so, I think, and there are a lot of good agents too, and don't get me wrong, but to be an agent, you should be an attorney. You should know the law and the rules. It should be regulated. Like I said, I think I said earlier, I come from a family of attorneys, and so why I can't understand a legal document any better than anyone else can. I can talk my way through it and have it dumbed down for me quite a bit, because I grew up in a house. My dad and my brother are both attorneys. So they got to dumb it down for me all the time. And so so yes, we do have conversations with them. Yes, there are great ones doing legitimate, great work. And then there are a lot of bad ones that are putting kids in really bad spots, and it's really not regulated. And our kids are very actively getting phone calls from agents all year, right? There's no shutdown time. It's not monitored. And whether they're working on behalf of other schools, who knows, but that's sure what it feels like at times. And so, and then I think just, when you talk about it, Jordan, from, communication, administration, coaches, student athletes, we have engaged we've spent a lot of time trying to engage with SAC and really setting up formal processes to get feedback. It's no secret that the student athletes might have a much stronger voice today than they ever have, and that's a great thing in general, and it's led to a lot of great things in our industry. And it fits right in. I say this all the time, right? I'll die on the transparency sword all day, and if anything, I get heat for maybe sharing something I shouldn't have. But I'd rather get my wrist slapped for that than trying to dance around something. And so we try to communicate as much as we can. And then we've actually flipped the script, and our coaches, and Travis and Eric and now Carrie, are the three that deal with this the most. But I love our coaches, and they're such good people, because we just, even when we know the likely scenario is if we do this work, it's going to end in the kid leaving. Our coaches have actually, because there's so many bad agents out there, our coaches actually take it upon themselves to basically make sure the money that's being talked about is legitimate. Because we don't want these kids to leave thinking they're going to get $250,000 and all of a sudden nothing's there. And that has happened before, where we have basically validated that they're not valid, and that has killed the deal. And the kids ended up staying. And so I love that about our coaches. And I think, just like anything else, while it's painful to go through it, and Trav has certainly had to deal with it, and women's basketball has been busy, and I think they all embrace it. And I think, you try to play the longer game there, and just do right by the kids at the end of the day. And who the hell could blame a kid when someone puts $1 million check in front of them for taking it? I don't know very many of us that would have said no to that at 18 to 22 years old.
And Chad, before you go, John, it's kind of like with those bad agents, right? It's like you got a devil and an angel on the shoulder, like telling you to do one way or the other. And we've had, like, as coaches have said throughout the season, like, it's the selling point is, you've got a legacy, that you could cement here, and we're not going to compete with some of these offers that you're getting. But I mean, how many guys, like, is it 10,000 or something, 11,000 names in just the basketball portal or something like that?
Yeah.
Most of them aren't even going to find a place.
Correct. And I think one of you guys might have even put something out on Twitter, but it was one of our fans for sure that basically said there were enough people in the football portal this year to roster in totality 98 FBS football programs. And so, 98 times 100, you're talking about almost 10,000 kids. And there's far less than 1,000 spots. Now, there's probably maybe that went up a little bit this year just because there's so much movement. But typically in Division I, you're talking about 250 to 500 spots that are given away through the portal each year, and you got 10,000 kids fighting for them. And so the number of kids, and I do think as time goes on, we'll start to actually get some data on this, but the kids that go in the portal, how many of them either go down not intending to or don't find a home? I mean, I bet it's upwards of a third that don't find a home at all and their career ends. And then from there, the kids that transfer more than once, the graduation rates basically fall off a cliff, right? So I do think we'll start to get some data on that. And hopefully as that data comes back in and we can start to show data as opposed to just saying what we think we know, hopefully those things will all help, as also having some regulation on what we're doing and salary caps or whatever it's going to be. But all those things would require a collective bargaining agreement. How do you do that if they're not employees? So it's not an easy position. It's not just an easy thing to figure out. I personally believe the Power Four conferences will break off. I am not scared of that. I think that ultimately it will be a great thing for us, and I hope they do. And I hope they do in all sports. So I just don't. I think we've proven that we have a brand. We know it's not what their brand is, but we know it's a brand that the country is interested in. And I'm very comfortable with that. I'm very comfortable in my own skin saying I'm not losing sleep trying to figure out how to beat Georgia in football next year, right? Now, don't get me wrong, and we know this, right? If our kids have to play Georgia, they're gonna be competitive about it. But that's not what we're talking about today. And I'm okay with that, and I think our coaches are too.
Jon, I want to go a little bit different direction on the portal and the landscape of college athletics, but it kind of has to do with, coaches. And a lot of times coaches are measured on wins and losses, and it's going to become more and more difficult for coaches to maintain programs when all these student athletes are going into transfer portal every single year, and coaches aren't just building programs. Instead, they're having to just fill in spots year over year. What type of impact do you think this will have for the coaches at the University of South Dakota?
Yeah, it's an added stressor on them for sure. And I think I think you've seen it, even we've felt it here, but even on a national perspective, right? A lot of people just kind of threw their hands up and walked away from it. And because it's a different game. And so I guess I compare it to just more other massive changes that the NCAA's experienced in its life. And Title IX was one of those changes, right? And that was a complete overhaul of how the operation ran. And ultimately it was messy and chaotic, but it's done a hell of a lot more good than bad in the long run. And so I do hope and foresee a day that we'll all look back at this, and maybe it's 20 years from now, right? Maybe it's nowhere in the near future, where we say, hey, we're in a better position today than we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, right? I mean, I was a student athlete. I was a Division I and a Division II student athlete, and then played professional baseball and minor league baseball when it wasn't unionized and it wasn't protected by the Major League Baseball union. And I mean, we got abused. Right now, we didn't think anything of it, and that's what all the old timers will say, like, "Oh hell, I had it way worse than that. Didn't think anything of it." Well, you didn't know to, and it was a different world. And so, I think the evolutions of this, and then will be a good thing. And then I think with our coaches, I think some of them see that. Ultimately, I think it's like anything else. They're just trying to figure out how to compete, and more importantly, how to compete at USD. And what is the right expectation on a men's basketball roster to, is there a number that I should be shooting for? That's a retention number. Is it 7? Is it 8? Is it 9? How many guys going into the portal is too many, or panic mode? And again, I don't know that it's so early in this, and we're still learning, but I think you hear a lot of our coaches talk about it all the time. Leanne, to Lucky, to Kyle, to Eric, Trav, everywhere, right? The core of what we do and who we are does not change, right? We want to be built on high school kids coming in, and kids that we can try to keep for 4 years. Now that's going to get really, really hard, right? If you have all league players in any sport, there's a dollar figure on that now. And we see it, especially in basketball, right? You're now on the men's and women's side. It's like first team, second team are all gone. It's almost automatic. And so it does get harder to do that, but then that's when, again, you kind of try to have your core coming in through high school, and you're having a bunch of those kids stay, and then hopefully you're filling 3, 4, maybe 5 in any given year, to kind of plug and play, and doing so, and that's the hard part, right? You're trying to find kids that are going to fit into your program for as little as 9 months. And it's not just a fit on the court, it's a fit at the university, academically, it's a fit, certainly team culture wise, all of those types of things. It also presents opportunity, right? And I think, while it's painful and maddening and chaotic, and yes, the portal's crazy, but it isn't the portal that's the problem, right? It's the rules around the portal that are created right now that make the portal a problem. And so the portal's just a mechanism for kids to transfer. So It's the adults, right, that are the problem. And until the adults can get their act together, the kids sure as hell aren't going to.
John, last one for me. I'm done talking about NIL, all that stuff. Last one for me. Football schedule just came out. What's the thought process of going into picking the kickoff times? Because some fans I talked to, they're like, you know what? They love the 7 o'clock. I mean, the game against NSU last year was dynamite.
Yeah.
So why can't we get a 4 o'clock game, and can those be flexed later on in the season? What goes into deciding the kickoff times for football?
Yeah. I think when I was here the first time, I think we were doing 4 o'clock kicks. And at least when I first started here, I think like go back 2011, 12 in that time frame. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that's what we did. And we actually put out surveys and everyone said to move them up. A lot of the reasons for having it be a later start were farmers working in the field, number one. Number two, I think family, kids, sports, all that kind of stuff. And I think in the survey, the results were, farmers were either working or they were coming, right? It wasn't both. And then on the flip side of that, the kids that have youth sports, usually that's an all day thing, not just a morning thing. And so I just feel like some of the information from that, and again, I'm trying to think back 10, 12 years now, led to that push. And ultimately for us, if you look at our attendance numbers, and I know everyone screams that, we need more fans, we need more students. Well, I mean, we set an attendance record last year in the regular season in both, and in the Division I era. And so we feel like what we're doing is working. And so we didn't want to change that. We also feel like, especially with our fans, consistency is a great thing, knowing full well TV can always flex us if we end up on a TV game, and hopefully we will get that opportunity again. As for the night games, we did discuss that. It'll be something we continue to discuss every year. I will tell you, night games, when you're playing, suck. It's really hard. And it's hard. I mean, your kids, your coaches, everyone's sitting around all day. And Thursday was actually better because the kids went to class. So it actually, didn't feel like you were just sitting around. But like Saturday night games are really, really hard. We had to do a couple on the road, and they're hard, right? And I mean, we came out flat against Youngstown. I'm not saying that's why, but that we came out pretty flat, and it was a late start. So so we do talk about those things. We will continue to, and believe me, we saw the response. It was primarily a great student response on the night game, and we have been really focused on student engagement just because they bring so much energy, and that energy I feel like will lead to more people having a good time at the game and more people buying tickets. And so it's a little bit of an inverse thought process there on really focusing on them, but I just view them, they're donors as much as anyone is, right? They're paying student fees, and it's a meaningful amount of money. And so why would we treat them any differently than the donors that we try to treat well? So I think Jaron's an absolute rock star, and our external team as a whole, with Corey, Ben, Jaron kind of leading those areas has been phenomenal. But we still got a long way to go. But the attendance trends would tell us to stay the course at the moment, at least. And we're on even a 3-year pretty consistent run with that now.
John, we'll get you out of here with this, I think. Number one, I want to show you my retirement. I think you've seen me post this on but that's my retirement fund right there.
It's the worst baseball card of all time, isn't it? Just a smiling mugshot. I look like I just faked like I played baseball in that picture.
347 batting average on the back is what it says. So
for those listening and not watching, Mark held up a signed baseball card of Jon Schemmel.
Yeah, I do like that it has my rookie year batting average on there because that was a good year. I was really just I hit 500 one month. I sucked the rest of the year. But yeah, it was. Now I forgot your question, Mark.
I didn't ask one yet, but
Okay, good.
That's $2.99 I spent on eBay.
Yeah, right.
Ever.
I should say too on the Thursday night game, last year it was just a unique circumstance of timing with it being Labor Day weekend. It was literally a last second kind of oh crap moment between Corey and I when we were signing the contract with Northern. It just kind of clicked like, hey, wait a minute, that's Labor Day weekend. And so we were not going to unveil black uniforms without students there, right? The black uniforms, yes, fan base was great, all of that, but we knew the students were going to respond to that, right? And so moving it to Thursday night was just kind of lucky. The stars aligned, if they do again, and with all the change going on, I would imagine even schedules we feel like we have set are probably going to be subject to change in the future with bye games, and who knows if he'll even be able to play us anymore. I just think there's so much change to come. Even when you have a plan and you think you're set up for the next 4 or 5 years, it's the great Mike Tyson quote, right? Everyone has a plan until I punch him in the face. I mean, that's what college athletics is right now, right? You have a plan. By the time you get that plan together, you get punched in the face again, and you got to go figure something out. And that's pretty much a weekly occurrence right now.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, Jon, we have taken quite a bit of your time tonight, and we appreciate it a lot. Some good stuff. We could probably sit here and chat with you for another hour or more, but we'll just have to have you on next season. How does that sound?
That sounds great. Great.
Appreciate we'll chat with him at the Coyote golf outings.
Yep. Yeah, that's right.
Yep. We'll do
apparently the Travis and John golf outing that, we might have to try to sell that to KDLT or something. Get them
pay-per-view. Yep. Let's make it happen. Let's go.
Let's get them down there. Just make sure Trav doesn't talk you guys into giving anyone strokes, because that ain't happening. I don't want to just beat him. I want to embarrass him, right? Yeah.
We also had quite a few more questions and comments online, so we'll try to compile those and send them over your way. But thanks. Yeah, we ran out of time tonight, folks. Thanks for all the questions, comments, and everything. But Jon Schemmel, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you, guys. Go Yotes.
John.
Go Yotes. All right. Well,
we are in great hands.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
What a great guy. Holy cow. I'm glad we have him. Yes, that's awesome.
Yep.
I wouldn't want to golf against him. When he's got the hat on backwards, I mean, he's like tunnel vision, man. That's
I don't even play golf, so I'm just caddying. I'm just along for the ride. I'm picking up nuggets wherever I can. But let's jump back in to a little bit of USD news. So, Mark, you're up next with news and notes.
News and notes. Football tickets for the Iowa State game to open next season are on sale. Check your email or goyotes.com. That game is August 30th. Track and field competed this weekend. Mason Sinclair set a new school record in the 800 meters, 1:48 and change. Super fast. Lots of other individuals
really fast at track.
Correct. Lots of other personal bests were set. Trey Young set a personal record running down a strip, placing a pole in a hole and jumping a bar that was 17 feet, 10 and a half inches high. So congrats to Trey. I could not do that. That's 17th in D1 this year. Overall, just tremendous outing by the track and field teams. Full results on goyotes.com. We were at softball this weekend, or at least for a couple of the games. Two of us were. We swept Kansas City 3-0, heading into the Summit League tournament. Men's golf we'll get to here in a second. Had a fantastic third round, finished third. We'll get into that later. And if you've been paying attention on social media, the transfer portal has been giving rather than taking here recently for football, men's basketball, and women's basketball.
Well, let's go ahead and jump into some of what happened, specifically golf. So this was the second round leaderboard in the Mecca Longbow Golf Course here, and you can see the Yotes were down in fourth place and really, really far behind first, second, in the leaderboard chase here. +6 for the Yotes going into the third round. And what ended up happening was a very magical day 3 for the Yotes. And the Yotes ended up finishing third in this one at -5, jumping over the Jackrabbits and, just shooting spectacular golf in that third round. Phenomenal stuff. Great story. If you were able to watch any of the highlights, it's just really good stuff. Mark, you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I wish it was televised because just watching the score was exciting. We were, was it 17 shots behind the Blue School going into the third round?
Yeah.
Something like that. And, 17 shots and ended up beating them by 2. And we were in second place there on the 16th hole. So just a tremendous round by the Yotes overall. Like I say, I wish it was televised so we could have watched it, but great job to the men's golf team. Fantastic.
Yeah. And if you weren't able to watch the some of the post meet festivities, Max Schmidtke just had spectacular round 3, great leadership for the Yotes. And so we did pull a little bit of the press conference. We'll show some of that right now.
Dakota here at the Summit League Championship. This is going to be one of those where we kind of look back at 6 years of college golf, but as you walk off the golf course, all of a sudden South Dakota in that second to last group of teams, second last wave, is 2 shots out of the lead. Mm-hmm. I mean, did you expect to walk off to that news?
I wouldn't say expected, but I believed it was possible. We had a talk last night that maybe yesterday didn't go as well as we wanted to towards the end, but we had an opportunity to come out in the first wave when the conditions were a little bit calmer. Play with basically no pressure. All the 3 schools above us had to play with each other, and we just kind of talked about, what's the lowest round we've shot this year, and kind of just emulated those feels of playing well and being free. And I'm really happy and thankful I was able to do it today, and even more happy that the guys were able to feel that as well.
5 under or 6 under?
5 under on a 71 here.
So 66,
yep.
And to go out like that potentially, or not go out like that, either way,
yeah.
What does that feel like?
Bittersweet for sure. It's on your mind the whole day, but I feel like I did a really good job just kind of keeping it at bay and focusing on the task at hand. And my goal was just to kind of focus on every shot as best I could, and then once the last one went down on 18, just kind of let it all out, and something you're never really ready for, but wouldn't want it any other way.
When you said,
man, that was it got a little dusty in here.
Little dusty.
So great job by Max and everyone else. Just a fantastic job, and we're really proud of the Yotes and how they, came back, and it was just a great end to the season. Now, we did put this map up here. The last couple weeks, we've been talking about the Mecca, but here is an actual United States map. It does not have Hawaii or Alaska, so I believe we'd call it a continental United States map, but it shows the location of the Summit League members for golf, and you can see where all of those are located. And then the Mecca of Mesa is located down here. So lots of good geography going on right now on the show.
Yeah.
Maybe all the other courses were closed or busy.
Right.
Yeah.
That looked good on a t-shirt. Really good on a t-shirt.
Absolutely. Maybe we'll have to get that printed up. I'm sure the Mesa Board of Tourism will love to sell those going forward.
Mesa, the Mecca of Summit League golf.
All right. Well, just because we went ahead and put this picture from last week up there, this is from the Drake relays, and we found out a little bit more information regarding this bulldog. Mark, go ahead and relay that.
So Cindy Brown gave us a lot of information about what happened to this bulldog. It's signed by all the winners, and it's currently in storage, but will eventually be displayed somewhere in Des Moines for some time for people to look at and take in and figure out where our gal signed exactly on that bulldog. And then at some point, it'll also be resurfaced to do it all over again next year. So that's what we know about the Drake bulldog here.
Yes. And
I believe the first choice was to actually sign a real bulldog, but they said no to that.
Right.
Okay.
We had a great viewership response to this one last week. So thank you for all the information, Cindy. We appreciate that. Next up, we were at softball on Friday. At least two of us were, and you can see Jordan actually made 3 of the 4 pictures here.
But, I don't think we can confirm that. I mean, I told you guys to make a cardboard cutout of me. Now, is that actually me, or is that cardboard cutout?
How you made 3 out of the 4 pitchers and we're only there for an inning and a half is pretty remarkable.
2 innings. But.
Yeah, we had a great time. So if you're not watching right now, if you're just listening, the first picture was Mark and I right before the first game was about ready to start. And then the weather was okay, not as great as Jordan said it was going to be last week, but he's no Phil Schreck or so we'll give him a little bit of a break. But later on, the picture in the upper right corner here is after Jordan joined us, and this had about a half inning left in the second game. And then we got some pictures with some friends of the show. Got volleyball player Cheyenne Halady, who was doing camera for the Yotes. Got a selfie with her. And then Coach Piv, huge friend of the show. Shout out, Coach Piv. You were awesome. So, yeah, that was kind of what happened there. As far as the games went, Mark, take us through some of the stats here.
Yeah, so game 1, like you mentioned earlier, it was kind of windy, and when the sun wasn't out, actually, I would describe it as chilly. But we were able to pull out a 7-3 victory. Claire Edwards started and finished the game. There's a lot of hits in this game. Kansas City had 10. We had 12. Obviously, we took advantage of runners on base better than they did, is kind of the story of this game.
And what was the turning point in this first game, Mark?
Well, I believe on the bottom half of one of these innings, was it the 4th or the 5th?
It was the 4th, I believe, yeah.
Yeah, the 4th. Claire Edwards was batting. Their pitcher threw a changeup, an off-speed pitch that Clara took for strike 2. And the Kansas City pitcher let everybody know how happy she was that she threw that first strike. And from that moment on, I don't know how many hits in a row we had. We ended up scoring 3 in that inning. And the game was over effectively after that. So shout out to their pitcher for throwing a strike there for strike 2, but you take the L.
Yep. And Michael, home plate umpire, small strike zone. Come on,
very
Michael.
small.
Yeah. Whew. All right. Here are some of the individual stats from the game. You can see there weren't as many left on base on that right-hand column, but a couple Yotes had multiple hits in this one. Madison Evans had 2 hits. Clara Edwards, 2 hits. Abby Brown also 2 hits for the Yotes. So some good stuff happening there in the first game. And so then a little bit of a break. Concession stand ran out of pretty much everything. And so players came back out on the field, started at 2:15, a little bit behind schedule. But this one, the Yotes just didn't want to start out as slow as they did in the first game. and put 4 up in the first inning. 3 more in the third, and then just needed 1 more to get that 8-run rule in the fifth and put that up in the bottom of the fifth for the.
Let this be known. If this game would have gone normal length, I would have been there for half the game, not just a half inning or whatever you're claiming it to be.
Unfortunately, Jordan, McKenna Young threw a 1-hitter and shut the door in the fifth. So that's, and there was 218 people. 218 people. Chad, is that accurate?
I lost count at about 60, but yeah, it was probably pretty close.
My energy counts at least 10.
Yeah.
Adding on to that. So yeah, take that, haters.
Some of the stats from this one, Ella McGee had 2 hits in 3 at-bats, scored a run, and had 1 knocked in. Delaney White, 1 for 3 with a run scored and an RBI. Abby Brown, 1 for 2 with a run scored and RBI. Riley Jones had a big game at the plate here, 2 for 3, 2 RBIs, and a run scored. And Brooke Carey, the third base for the Yotes, also was 2 for 3 in this one with 2 RBIs. So lots of names we could mention here, but 8-0 victory in game 2. It was a great Friday afternoon.
Right. Only 5 left on.
Yeah. So then Saturday rolled around. This one, Saturday morning, 11 a.m. For this one, the attendance was 272. It was the red out game. And so all the student athletes from the other sports were encouraged to attend. Obviously, there was a track meet going on, so some of those track and field athletes weren't able to attend there. But you can see here, South Dakota put up 5 runs in the first inning, leading to that 7-0 victory. Mark, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that sticks out here is on the top line there. Kansas City is 5-42 on the year. Like, whew, that's tough sledding.
Yeah.
We jumped on them early, and really it was over after the first inning.
And this one was kind of a needed one for the Yotes. Last weekend going up to Fargo, rough stretch there in Fargo, but this one kind of got the Yotes back where they needed to be in the conference standings. And so we'll go ahead and pull up the softball bracket for the Summit League tournament. We did mention last week that we didn't think St. Thomas was going to play in it based on other results. Well, this proves it. St. Thomas is not playing. So there's 6 teams in the Summit League tournament. As a result of the sweep over Kansas City at home this weekend, it moved the Yotes into the number 3 seed in the Summit League tournament. And so, once again, open up with number 6 seed, Kansas City. Then the winner of that hosts number 2. But remember, this is a double elimination tournament. So there's always ways to, win your way back in and everything else. So it'll be kind of a fun event going on. This one's going to be in Brookings. And so if you want more information, go to goyotes.com and you can find more information.
Yeah, check out the schedule. I know in past years when it's been in Brookings, USD has had a decent contingent go up there. So if you live in and around that area and you're a Yotes fan and you're able to get to the games, definitely, if you're brave enough, show up to that school up north and cheer on the Yotes.
We got a chance.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Track and field results, Mark.
Well, that was supposed to be skipped.
Oh, well, let's skip it.
It's late.
Yeah. If you want track and field results, go to goyotes.com. We mentioned a few of the highlights earlier in the show, but we just don't have enough time to go through everything. There's another home meet coming up this weekend at USD, so get out and support the Yotes there. The Summit League tournament, obviously we mentioned that, Wednesday, 3:30 up in Brookings. Go out and support the Yotes there. You can watch on the Summit League network if you would like as well. So that's what's going on this week in USD athletics. Kind of winding down its final exams, things like that. So let's see. This is our season finale, unless, I don't know, Mark's wondering, do we want to do another show? I mean, if we make a deep run here,
when they win that Summit League, we're going to have a softball guest on, and we're doing a show.
Okay, so we're going to do that.
Yep.
But if this is our last show of the season, we do have some thanks we want to put out there. A lot of our guests, we just had the best guests on the show this year. Dr. Carrie Oyen, phenomenal, multiple time guest for us. On the Couch with Dr. O segment was spectacular. The Yote Mom Squad, Coach Peterson, assistant coach Devin Amy, Coach Carrie Amy, Max Burchell, Grace Larkins, Marcus Destin, Jaron Duffy, Thomas Jones, Jerry Paleshi, John Thayer, Coach Johansson, assistant coach Piv, Morgan Bodie, and Jon Schemmel. We had the best guests on this season. Thank you to all of you that were guests this season.
For sure.
Seriously.
What awesome people, top to bottom. Just unbelievable.
I don't know how we top it next year.
Well, we're gonna have to have some of them back on. I think we can clip that video of Jon Schemmel earlier saying he's going to come back on next season. So we've got that. We also, may have had a commitment from Coach Williamson, who did not show this season. So we're going to have her on next year as well. So lots of things to look forward to.
And listeners, and what we've talked about, us three have talked about this too, right? For the summer, like we might not go live as much, but we'll have some interviews with some folks that we'll release just to keep things fresh.
Yeah, and we'll do lots of replays from this season. If you want to go to our YouTube channel, make sure to smash that subscribe button. But you can watch all the replays of all of our shows on YouTube. Otherwise, we'll try to do replays on Facebook and Twitter over the summer as well. So stay tuned for more information on that. Anything else? All right. And now.
And that's just what they wanted to do there. And all things considered, again, as you see the iChart cardboard cutout, how appropriate.
Through the review, the iChart made its way to the video board. It really injected some energy.
Mark Wendt is famous for holding up his eye chart at USD basketball games when officials make questionable calls. Every week, we go ahead and give our eye chart moment of the week, whether it's a questionable call in a game or a questionable call in life. So last week, we had our eye chart of the week moments, and you can see that we had 19,345 votes, of which...
That's a significant jump.
Well, of which the Cleveland Guardian fan only garnered 11.1% of the vote. Kid Pushers got 22.2% of the vote. And the Summit League itself got 66.7% of the vote. So, Mark, that was your eye chart of the week. So you get to go first this week.
So my eye chart of the week is going to go to the South Dakota Department of Transportation. So those of you that have traveled north from Vermilion on I-29 recently have run into construction pretty soon after you hop on I-29 there. Now, a lane is blocked off. They're working in the ditch, and it's a steep ditch. So they're like, I don't know, 50 feet below you, and they're just moving dirt down there in the bottom of the ditch. But they have the lane blocked off for absolutely no reason. And to top it off, they also have the speed limit reduced to 45 miles an hour. So you can watch this guy dig at the bottom of this ditch longer. Absolutely ridiculous. South Dakota Department of Transportation, you get my eye chart of the week.
45 on the interstate, slowing down to that. That's
brutal.
Off.
It's ridiculous.
All right, Jordan, you're up next.
All right, mine's a little more hardcore than Mark's is. Mine goes to the White House. You might have to get the little banner up about opinions, right, Chad? Mine goes to the White House Twitter account, and whoever decided to retweet the picture of President Trump as the Pope. I'm with a lot of other people that I thought it was ill-timed and quite distasteful. As someone who is Catholic, I know it's a meme, and there might have been some humor behind it as a joke, but I just thought it was ill-timed and quite distasteful. And I think I even used the word abhorrent with it. But the White House, the fact that they tweeted it out, they get my eye chart of the week.
All right, you guys are nice and concise here tonight.
It's late.
Well, I am going to go. I had lots of options for my eye chart of the week. I actually had 2 different opportunities to nominate Jordan Decker for my eye chart of the week. Number 1, his terrible weather forecast from last week. And number 2, we actually have video of him on the show with Coach Piv telling us that he was going to block off his calendar so he could attend the softball games on Cinco de Mayo, aka May 2nd, last Friday. If you want to see that video, go ahead and watch it. It was on episode a few weeks ago. I think it was episode 29 or 30. But go back and watch that. We actually have that posted on Twitter. But I'm going to go ahead and give my eye chart of the week this week to something else. It is concert season. It's the end of the school year. I have 3 children, a senior in high school, a sophomore in high school, and a 6th grader. So I spend a lot of my time the last few weeks at concerts and performances. 2 of my sons were in the high school musical. We had a band concert for high school this past Tuesday. On Thursday, we had a 6th grade band concert. We had a piano recital this afternoon. We have chorus concerts coming up on Monday and Tuesday evening this next week. And at all of the events that I have been to so far, I have found that people in the audience have a really hard time keeping their mouth shut during the performance. When you are at someone else's performance, shut your mouth. I am not there to listen to you talk. Okay? Mm-hmm. Keep it shut. Zip it up. All right? That's all I got to say. That's my eye chart of the week. People that talk during concerts and performances.
As someone who is married to a band director, for folks that don't know jack squat about concert etiquette, I will echo Chad. Just shut up. If you don't know how to behave at a concert, very simple. Don't talk and don't have your phone out. That's it. And don't clap unless someone else, like the whole audience, starts to clap.
When the conductor still has their hands up in the air, don't start clapping.
That is not the time to clap. And that's like level 2. Level 1 is just shut up and don't have your phone out.
Oh.
And if you see, or if your kid is doing it, or if you see someone else, it's totally okay to just be like, hey, can it? Chad, you're getting my vote.
All right, good.
That's a good one. You haven't been that fired up
since those jabronis were down in Omaha. I mean, this is,
since AEW, yeah. Butch Mitch, rest in peace, Jordan. You know what?
Oh,
I tried.
All right,
I tried. Things were out of my control. I made it though.
Well,
that softball game.
Jon Schemmel, amazing. Tremendous. Amazing guest tonight. Yep. We want to have you on again. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. I think we set record numbers for viewership tonight. So excellent. We'll try to do better next year. But I mean, this is a great way to wrap up the season 1 if this is our last show. Any final comments, guys?
No, I would just say I enjoyed this way more than I thought I would. Obviously, hanging out with you guys has been awesome. Meeting the guests that we've had has just been phenomenal. I couldn't have dreamed it would be as fun as it's been. So I look forward to season 2 for sure.
Yeah, I'm right with you. I got way more out of this than I thought I was going. I knew I was going to have fun, but this is just a whole nother level. And to dive into conversations, to have those non-traditional talks with coaches and student athletes and other folks within the athletic department. And then to see them in person, and it's right. Like, it's just been amazing. And this first year's been great. For listeners and watchers, we're going to do it again. We're going to keep doing it as long as our sponsor keeps paying us. The Wakanda Peach Company. I'd be remiss if I didn't say, this episode, season finale, is sponsored by the Wakanda Peach Company out of Burbank, South Dakota, where all your peach dreams come true. There we go. There's the slide for that. I will say, if you are a business owner and you'd like to potentially sponsor stuff, we are looking into getting into the merchandise field. As I mentioned last episode, and as Chad is wearing tonight, we do have our shirts. We've got some hats. We've got some other cool merchandise stuff we're thinking of, but it'll take some time. Stuff costs money, obviously, but if you want your logo on that stuff, logo on the slides, reach out to us. Reach out to the Howling Podcast account. But yeah, very much looking forward to next year, and just appreciate Coyote Nation and everyone for tuning in this year.
It was amazing. When Mark and Jordan approached me about this last summer, they said I was like, what are we going to talk about every week? This is going to be crazy. Well, we obviously showed tonight that we have so much to talk about. We can't even contain it within 1 hour. Right. All right. So there's so much Yote information out there, and we want to keep bringing it to you. Like Jordan said, sponsors, the DMs are open. Okay. Let us know. We'll probably reach out this summer to some people and see what we can find out. But even if we don't, we're going to probably continue doing this again. So thanks to everyone for watching and listening this season. We're looking forward to a great summer, and we're also looking forward to a great season 2 and the 2025 version of the Coyote athletic teams, whether it's football, volleyball, track and field, you name it. We're looking forward to everything that's going on in the 2025.
Tennis. We're going to be a big tennis podcast next year.
Tennis. Yep. Huge. Soccer, softball, everyone. We want to get your coaches, your athletes. We want to support them on the program. So looking forward to everything coming up. All right. Well, until next year, for Jordan Decker and for Mark Wentz, I'm Chad Berger. Go Yotes.
Go Yotes.